What About Vietnam? A podcast with Gary Newsom. The series where Gary talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin Chao and welcome to the What About Vietnam podcast. Today I'm talking to Vicki Thai from Utah, USA. Hello to all my listeners in Utah. I have heaps actually. It's quite surprising, but really lovely, and hello to everyone. Now, Vicki is a very special lady with a history that I feel sure will come to bear during the show. And it speaks to her reason for going to Vietnam in the first place, and it calls to attention a little bit more about her heritage. But that's for Vicki to tell and reveal in this show. Vicki and I have become quite close over the past 6 months as she engaged my trip planning services through What About Vietnam to create her trip to Vietnam with her mum. As part of What About Vietnam, or WAV as we call it, I offer trip planning services, which is loads of fun and something I get really involved with as I get to create wonderful trips for people using my knowledge and accessing quality tour operators I know in Vietnam that will deliver exceptional services. The delight is hearing afterwards how the trips went and what were the highlights. You find detail that you just can't get in a guidebook. You find insights from people. And I think the value in that is knowing that it sounds real, it sounds true, it sounds correct. And obviously it's got some bias from the people that give up their stories on the show, but at least you can be sure it's real and true. The What About Vietnam website features these travel services. I do charge a small fee to do that, but please feel free to reach out to me anytime. So before we jump into the show, I'd just like to tell you a little bit more about Vicki. As I said, Vicki lives in Sandy, Utah, USA. She is in the healthcare technology industry in sales for a global company. The platform is Android, and they have 55% of the global Android enterprise market share. Outside of healthcare, her company targets Fortune 500 companies, and within healthcare, they target the larger hospital networks to provide clinicians with technology that improves patient care and satisfaction. Wahoo for that. She is a former runner. However, more recently, she has got into the practice of hot yoga. 3 cheers to you, Vicki, for hot yoga. She loves to travel, and each year she will take off with a close friend, picking a city, an area they haven't been to, and then they just go for it, enjoying local food and spas as they traverse through the city. She describes herself as a definite foodie and adventurous eater, but no to any bugs. Totally with you there. Vicki is ethnically Chinese but born in Vietnam. Now, this is where her story and that of her mum becomes even more interesting. She immigrated to the States when she was 4 years old. In the past, she said she never really had an interest in Vietnam. It wasn't until her mum had both of her knees replaced and witnessed some vulnerabilities there that she saw the opportunity to travel with her may not come up and wouldn't offer any guarantees. So she better make an effort to put it on the bucket list and get on and do it. So thus she reached out to me through What About Vietnam to help her create the trip. And the trip was to have some very special places of interest that it had to be included in the itinerary. These included Saigon, the Mekong Delta, and Dalat, which we will focus as a main city in this episode. Vicki's going to be able to give us some insights that I think you wouldn't get from anyone else. So I'm really, really happy that she's coming on to do that. It's been a delight to deal with Vicki. She says after completing the trip, end of May, just gone, that's 2023, it was a decision she will never regret or forget. I think we're going to find out more about how this trip evoked some emotions and some understanding of her heritage. She said, when I've thought about my heritage in the past, it was basically just in passing, just facts, no emotions. After visiting Vietnam in May, interacting with the people, the landscape and their commerce, it made me feel very proud of my heritage. I hope to be back within the next couple of years. So I think this is going to be a very special episode. It's one I've been looking forward to doing. I think we're going to hear some reflections from Vicki as how it opened her eyes to this country, her country of birth, and just how her perceptions maybe had been shaped and what she and her mum found on the other side. So, Vicki, welcome to the What About Vietnam podcast. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to talk about our experience in Vietnam, and and how it really broadened my views of it. Like you mentioned in the past, I really never gave it a second thought, but this trip has changed everything and how I view Vietnam. It was so amazing, and as you know, my brother and his family has booked a trip with you for December, and so clearly my mom and I were that convincing after coming back from our trip. And I have another brother who is going to reach out a little bit later. His wife had unexpected brain surgery a few weeks ago. And so I think that's, like with my mom's experience, that's really opened his eyes as well. And so it was just an amazing experience. And I'm excited to talk to you about it.
And not everybody has your interesting background. So I'm wondering if you can share with us just a little bit of a story, maybe starting with your mum and that trip that took her to settle in the US. You as a 4-year-old, like any memories that you have of arriving into the States and just how you assimilated into the US?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to take it a step further and talk about my grandparents. So my grandparents on both sides actually are from China and immigrated to Vietnam to start businesses. My grandparents on my dad's side, they were cobblers, or they made shoes. And then on my mom's side, they were bakers. And apparently their bakery became so famous. And then they opened aquariums. And so they were very established within the Vietnam community. And then, of course, then that's where my mom was born in Dalat, which is a suburb of Dalat, and why we went back there specifically on the trip in May. And then I was actually so I'm the youngest of 4. And then we were actually born in Saigon, and I believe we lived in District 5. And the pictures I showed you, they were District 5. And then during the Vietnam War, interesting story. My dad was an accountant for the U.S. Embassy. And so during communist regime, they have a tendency to kidnap anyone associated with Americans because there's this belief that America is paid with gold, everyone has money, right? And so they would hold the kids for ransom. And so my last name, Thai, is actually my mom's family's last name. So they could not connect us kids to my dad.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And because my grandparents on my mom's side was so established, we were pretty safe with the last name Thai, right? And so during the war, what ended up happening is everyone was leaving, right? You hear boat people all the time and you hear the stories. Well, they're all true, right? And some of the stories are horrendous. Ours was not great, but compared to others that I've heard, it's a walk in the park. So my grandparents on my mom's side being established, they actually rented a boat for the family and friends. And my dad was actually asked to join them. And the thought was, you leave the country, you go to a refugee camp, you go to your final destination, right? Ours is the US. And then he would sponsor the rest of the family over. So my mom and the 4 kids over. Well, along the Thailand coast, and you hear about pirates all the time, right? So at nighttime, the boats dock and the pirates come out. And so our boat was targeted, and all the men are thrown overboard, all the women were tied up, and they ransacked and stole, right? Because when you leave the country, you're going to take with you. You're going to take money, you're going to take jewelry, you're going to take all of that stuff. They ransacked and took all of that stuff. My dad was thrown overboard. And then my uncles heard him screaming. They swam over and he was gone. So we lost my dad on his way to to leave Vietnam. And so my grandpa sent a telegram to my grandma. My grandma went and talked to my mom. And so we've lost our dad. Mm-hmm. And so within 6 months, we were leaving again. My grandma said to my mom, you and your kids need to live. You don't have a life here, right? And so we left. We were on a refugee camp in Indonesia for like 6 months, and then we immigrated to the US. Right. And so I was 4 when we got here. Your language is developed, but not to the point where you're fluent. And so English is my language. I always spoke to my mom in English, and just basically assimilated. And that's why I think when you're talking about my bio, I didn't really have a connection to Vietnam because I was so young, yes, right? And my language, right? And I can tell you, I understand Vietnamese and I can order off the menu, right? And I speak broken Cantonese, but that's basically it, right? And so, if you were to talk to people here, they're like, oh, you're just American, right? And it was funny when we were in Vietnam, our tour guide in Mekong Delta is like, and I was saying like, thank you in Vietnamese. He's like, oh, you have an English accent. You have an American accent. And so you never think of that. And so, and that's just, I think it was just, we came over and we're so young. So I was 4, the oldest was 9, right? And so we basically have spent the bulk of our lives here, yes, right? And, I tell you, I'm 49. So I've been here basically my whole life, right? And so you really, growing up, I think you hear more of that. What are you? Right. And then you hear like the racist, like little jokes that little kids do, and it's very common. I know within the US and I'm sure within the rest of the world where your Asian name is different. And so it's harder to pronounce. So you change it. So I picked Vicki in 3rd grade, right? Don't ask why. My ethnic name is Tan, like Tanya. But it's spelled T-H-A-N-H, right? And I'm sure you see that name when you're in Vietnam, right? In America, it's harder to pronounce, and so you change that.
What year was it when you got out of Indonesia? Do you know what year that was?
It was in the 80s. So we got to the US early 81.
All right. And how old would your mum have been at that time?
My dad died when she was 31. Oh. And so not long after, she took us and my dad's aunt, who was basically our nanny. We left the Vietnam to come to and here's the thing. When you go to a refugee camp, you really don't know where your final destination is, right? It could be Australia. It's just wherever your sponsors are. But we landed in Utah in early 81. Right.
Is there a big community of Vietnamese in Utah? You may see at the beginning of the show notes in the podcast channel that you're listening from some words that say text me a message. It's a great idea, don't get me wrong. I love hearing from you and whether that's your thoughts on the episodes, some questions, messages of appreciation. I just love the feedback. It's really great. However, I feel it remiss of me to not thank you for them, but to not be able to respond directly to you. So if you have sent me a question, and I've got lots, and you haven't heard from me, there's a really good reason why. I actually don't have the ability in the technology to respond to you. They kind of expect that you would or I would answer the questions in the form of a show. And there's just kind of too many, and I just think it's just too personal not to do it that way. So I wanted to alert you to the fact that if you do send me a message through that connection option, I'm not going to be able to respond to you directly. So if you do have a question, and it is time sensitive, or you want to send me any kind of message, can I suggest the following 2 ways? 1, send me an email to whataboutvietnam@gmail.com. That is the email address that I have the most constant access to, and I will aim to get back to you ASAP. Secondly, if you go to the website for the podcast, which is whataboutvietnam.com, if you scroll right to the bottom, there is a chance for you to leave a voice message. Now, in that voice message, I can respond to you equally with a response in voice. So if you want a quick response, that's your next best way. But I just wanted to get this into the show, make you aware of this, as it really is becoming problematic. And I've just got too many, and I can't kind of go naming people and answering each question. That's just a little bit silly. So if you have sent me a text message before and you're waiting on a message back as a response, I'm so sorry. I cannot do that. But if you want to send the question again, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, well, supposedly there is, because we are getting Asian supermarkets, we're getting Asian bakeries, we're getting Asian drink shops all over the Salt Lake Valley. And so I remember my sister-in-law and I, who's also Asian, were saying, I didn't know there were so many Asians here, right? But if you were to talk to people who are very vested in the Asian community, they will tell you our Asian community is blowing up. That's why so many, are coming here.
When we say Asians, are you talking about the broad spectrum of Asians, like from all countries? Yeah. So we're talking all of Southeast Asia, kind of.
Yeah.
Including China.
If you think about it, including China. And, even though we're all very different, we eat a lot of the same food.
Have you heard about our girls' getaway tours? Our first one kicks off 7th of September, so not long to go. We're really excited to bring this innovative program to the touring space for female travellers, as it's an option to experience the country in 3 very unique ways, and I'm really proud of that. What makes our tours different from the throng of tours out there? Gosh, have I thought about that question? And I've tried to put myself in your shoes to answer it. Firstly, we've aimed it at women who are at that point in their life where they want to stretch their curiosity to visit less well-known places, in particular in Southeast Asia. Maybe they are just not in a position to hook up with fellow travellers or a partner to make the trip themselves, or they don't want to. They just want to hand over the responsibility to someone else, and it ticks all the boxes that they want, and they just want to go and enjoy themselves. Our trip is all about the things we think females will enjoy and get a lot of fun from. Whatever your age is, there's something for everyone, including great food, shopping, cultural experiences, pampering and exploring in luxury, and at a pace that actually makes you feel like you're having a real holiday. It's about fun. It's about giggles. It's about being with like-minded people and soaking up the Vietnamese culture we know and love. Now, the tour has a superpower, and that superpower is in our own expert, Kelly McCarthy. She's going to be right there with you, taking you through these separate experiences featured in the tour. A bustling city, as in Saigon, because you have to see Vietnam as it is now. It is a dynamic country, and that means it includes a very bustling, dynamic city. But it's also got its history hidden in the old town of Hoi An. And there lies the charm, the lanterns, and a story to be told. Then we're going to take you to an exotic island, an island that not everyone will know about, and it is specifically chosen because it has the less trodden tourist on this island. So people are just starting to discover it. So we wanted to be up there for you first, for you to experience it. What it comes down to, we think, about our tours is the small things. The things the bigger companies who take bigger groups can't do. We want to take you to places where we can get a table for 12 easily. We're about boutique luxury. We want you to feel you have your trip plans in our hands. We are going to make it as easy as possible for you to relax and just enjoy it. Signing up for extras is totally up to you or not. Vietnam is so unique in the mix of countries. We aim to show you that side of the country. We're not adrenaline junkies. We're not into high octane activities or adventure. We're really following that suite of we're in it for comfort, not speed. That's us. It will suit the person who is kind of new to traveling solo maybe. But in saying that, we've got great interest from people who want to bring a girlfriend or maybe their daughter or their mother or sister. And we think that's a great idea and that will save you a little bit on the room rates. We have new dates for 24 plus a new special option. Now, this is where we really separate ourselves out from most tours. What we're going to do is offer you the option, if you want, to not do the whole trip, but just do a section of the trip. So say you're already wanting to go to Vietnam, but you're going as part of a family or a group, and you want to break away from that and you want to join in with a girls' trip like ours. So if you want to just do the Hoi An and the Old Town part, you can just come in and join the main group just for that section. If you want to do the island, you can do the same. Or if you want to do the bustling city of Saigon with us, you can do that. This is what we think separates us out from the ordinary tours that are out there. And we think being able to do this will give you more options. You can go from the beginning A to Z of the tour if you wish, but if you can't afford that or you want to mix that up, that option is now going to be available to you. And guys, if you're feeling a bit left out, we didn't want that either, because I have a lot of you following me and I didn't know quite how to put something together to fit what I think you guys would like. So we've put it in this context. We'd like to offer you something specialized. So if your girl is going off to join us for this whole tour or part thereof, and you want something for you, guess what we can do? We can do golf. We can do adventure, caving, wellness, yoga retreat. You might even want to compete in a marathon. You might want to get your PADI diving certificate. All these things are very doable, and I have great contacts in the industry in Vietnam to make sure that that can happen for you, and you can get on the tee on that golf course when you want to, or you can get a specialist PADI diver to take you diving in Nha Trang or wherever you'd like to do it in Vietnam with the right people and the right operators. These would be individually designed for you to match up with the tours. Now, the dates for the new tours are up on the website, so please go to whataboutvietnam.com and go to the Girls Getaway page and you'll see all the information there. Please reach out to us through the request form, through the emails that are on that website, and we would be happy to provide you with a full detailed itinerary and options if you would like, guys, for us to put something specific for you. It's all up on the whataboutvietnam.com website, and we really look forward to you taking part in our next getaways for 2024. Now on with the show.
I have such a huge percentage of listeners. So, like, I have over 60,000 listens of the show, and it grows at around about 1,000 a week. And
Wow.
what became unusual for me was to think, why would people in Utah be listening to this podcast about Vietnam? And I did a little bit of digging, and the more I dug away, and, thank God for Google, was to find out that in 1975 onwards, that Utah as a state was one of the few in America that did take and was willing to accept a lot of Vietnam refugees. The community, I think, stemmed from, and that's why I was intrigued with your story when we first got together, was, and particularly when you were mentioning about your mum wanting to come back, I had that thought. I was thinking, gee, I wonder whether in the mix of things, this is how this has come about. But this was also where American GIs had, formed relationships with Vietnamese women, and they wanted to bring them as their partners back and their families, etc. So there was a few particular states that kind of welcomed with open arms the Vietnamese into the US at that time. So that's kind of what I know to add to this little equation.
Interesting.
There you go. You go to Vietnam in 2023, the first time you've been back since you were 4 and since she was 30. So you're going in almost not blind, but a really open mind. Or did your mum say, oh, look, this is something I really need to do, or this is something I really want to find out about? Because I know we talked a little bit about it when we did the trip plan. So I know it, but my listeners don't. So let's go down that path a little bit. So share some of the things that she wanted to see and do and that you wanted to make sure happen.
Sure. Absolutely. So for clarification, my mom has gone back to Vietnam, I believe, twice.
Oh, okay.
In our 40-something years within the U.S., but it's been a very long time ago. And in the past, she went with her friends. And, as you know, with a lot of Asians, right, they are very good with their money. So when they go back, they stay with family. And even the best accommodations possibly in Vietnam is very different from what we have in the Western side, right? And so did she enjoy it? I'm not sure. But, she was always happy to come home, right? Let's just say that. And so for my mom, it was to, she's 75, right? Yeah. And you don't, at a certain age, you don't have that many more opportunities ahead of you, because after a while, maybe, your health breaks down a little bit, and sitting on a flight for 20 plus hours is going to be very difficult, right? And then also she just had her knees replaced. And for me, it was spending time with my mom, right? Because it's an experience, right? We could go around town here, but it's very normal. This is different.
Yeah, it's bonding.
Right? And this is something I can share with her. And I could see her hair, where she grew up, so I can better understand sometimes. We don't always mesh. She would say things, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. And she's like, well, if you understood how I grew up, you would be more sympathetic or understanding about it. And here's the thing, because I didn't grow up that way, I'm not going to understand.
Correct.
Right? And so it was just an opportunity. And then also after, with my mom, it'd be nice to really know where I came from, right? Because all I know is the US. I'm all American, right? That's all I know, right? And so that was the deciding point. And that was when the ball got rolling with contacting you.
I'd like to take just a quick break here. We'll be back to the show shortly. We do offer travel planning advice. I'm happy to put a full itinerary and trip plan designed to your specific needs together just for a small fee. You can find all that information on the travel services page on the website. If you'd like to really help us, it would be great if you could give us a rating or a review on your podcast channel of listening. So on your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever, if there is the option to leave a rating or review, please do so. The hungry beast of that algorithm is what drives us all. So I'd be really grateful if you would do that. Sign up for our newsletter. Please stay tuned. Thank you for being a wonderful supporter. And okay, let's just get on with the next show.
There was really specific locations, and I want to now start to talk about those locations because I think, everyone listening is going to be fascinated about these locations. Now, let's start with Saigon. Did Saigon blow your hair back when you got there?
I loved it. I loved it. I love the hustle and bustle. I love city life, right? And then I would go to the more remote for quote unquote a vacation or a break. But I love city life. I love the sounds. I love the smell. I love the people. It blew my mind. And I think all the scooters at one time blew my mind. And I remember saying to our tour guide, I said, I can never drive here because I would kill, 2 or 3 scooter people on every drive. And she's like, oh, you'll get used to it when you live here. But I just loved it. I loved how everything was so close. And I loved how if you want to eat a certain food, there is a street and there's all these restaurants that just sells that. I'm going to be honest. I loved it. That is a city that's close to my heart. I can tell you, anytime I go back, I will never miss that city. It just felt so at home to me.
And look, I'm really glad you've said that about Saigon because a lot of people skip Saigon. It's like a little bit too overwhelming or whatever. I think it's got, over the years, better. I mean, it's embraced commercialism to the absolute max, but it's got a vibe. It's got an energy. I agree with you. I get a grab bike and I'm on that bike in 2 seconds flat. I'm round the corner, the best coffee, coffee houses everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you had that experience because I wasn't sure because I have such a mix in my suite of people who want to visit Vietnam, and some just go, the bikes, the pollution, the rubbish, all of those things, and they're all there. They're all definitely there. But you either are a type of person and you go, I'm going to just embrace this and go with it. And I was really glad to hear that you did.
Right. And it was funny because we had a couple when we were going to the Mekong Delta. So the shuttle picked us up, right? And so they picked us up first and then we went to their hotel. They're a British couple. And every year they take, global trips. And one of the comment that they said to us, and I will never forget it, just because we were just talking about how much I love the hustle and bustle of Saigon. And they said, Saigon is exactly where Singapore was 10 years ago. And then we all hear about Singapore now, right? And so I'm really excited, to each time I go back to see how Saigon transforms, right? And then maybe eventually 10 years, they will be, the Singapore of Asia. But it was just really interesting. And I just loved it. I loved the hustle and bustle. I just loved all of it.
No, I can remember where there was a time where there was no malls. There was the shopping was very, very limited to Bentan markets, and that whole experience was just at a really basic level. But it's so sophisticated now. I've been to fine dining restaurants that would rival any restaurant that you would find in the US or here in Australia. Like the food was just absolutely fabulous. The service, I get blown away. I think you also had a really good guide in Saigon.
Oh, yes. Twee was phenomenal. My mom and I are just like, who is like that, right? It's like, I believe I'm a pretty nice person, but she blows me. I'm mediocre compared to her. She's just so thorough. She is so caring. I tell you what, I can't speak enough of her. And as you know, I requested specifically that with my brother's family, if they could have Twee as their tour guide. Yeah, she is phenomenal. She is, my mom, I think, considers her as her 5th child, just because the hospitality there is one of the things that I think one of the highlights of the trip, and I think I mentioned to you, is our tour guides. Twee was exceptional, on any respect, right? But even our tour guide on the Mekong Delta, he was phenomenal. Our tour guides in Dalat and their drivers. It was I just could not believe these people, the hospitality, the kindness, right? And I really feel like, we could all talk about tour guides, and then I think we've all experienced tour guides who clearly don't want to be there, right?
Yes. It's a job.
None of our tour guides, none of our tour guides like that. And I just think to myself, if I just had people after people coming day after day, could I keep this up? I'm not sure I can, right?
No.
And so that's one of the things that I love. And I mentioned it to my family, and my part of it that's made me so proud of my heritage is that just the kindness of the people, right? Because growing up, we always hear about how poor Vietnam is and how uneducated the people are, right? And all that stuff. And just being there in May, it blew me away because they were educated, they were kind, they were well-spoken. And, here's the thing. They spoke English to me and they spoke Vietnamese to my mom, without a hitch. And so I will tell you that the people there are so kind, are so good. You would not consider people in a developing country like Vietnam to be as, I don't want to say classy, but I'm going to use that term because I can't think of another, as classy and thoughtful as the people and the tour guides that we had in Vietnam. And Twee was, they were all phenomenal, but Twee is at the top.
When you go to a foreign country, the people and how you are treated, to me, says a lot about the country itself. Now, we both know the history of Vietnam and just how the country has been through so much, and yet they can still welcome us so warmly, so friendly, so openly, so generously. I feel the Vietnamese have a generous spirit, and they will, nothing is too much trouble. Service is just...
Yeah. Well, it's like what we're talking about. It's for maybe in Australia and the West, in the US, it's a job, right? And where I just, I never felt like we were imposing. I never felt that, we were asking for too much. They never made us feel that way. And it was so welcoming. I remember we stepped off the plane, right? It was a 24-hour flight. Twee picked us up, and it was like 10:30 at night. And she just waved, and I was just like, and then the first thing she says is, "Happy birthday." And I looked at her, I was like, "How did you know?" She's like, "It was on your passport." And it was like, it's just the little things, right? And I think, it being in sales and with you working with the public so much, it's always accumulation of little things that adds up to a really big thing,
Definitely.
And I think Vietnam exemplifies that with their people.
I'm keen to hear what you thought of the Mekong Delta and what story and history you got around that area.
So we did the Mekong Delta cruise, right, on Mekong Ice. And I tell you, our tour guide was Jonathan there. He was phenomenal. He was just phenomenal. So friendly, so educated on everything. And the thing I love about the Mekong Delta, well, it was, we're on the cruise and we're just going by, and then you see so many homes, on the coast of it. And so many are just so very run down, right? And some of it breaks your heart because you realize, people actually live this way, right? And then, but we went to, we stopped and we did this walking tour, and it's all these tropical fruits. And we went to this house, and they have this huge, oh my God, I can't even imagine, this garden with fruits, vegetables, everything. And the people were just so kind. I'm not sure I can sit and cut fruit for people every day, multiple times, and have a smile on my face. Strangers coming to your house, eating your fruit, right? And I tell you, it was just phenomenal. And, and there was something about Jonathan that he was just so kind. And I just remember he liked talking to my mom, because my mom's a jokester. She's not that way with her kids, but she's that way with others, right? where I was just talking to him, and he was just like, I love talking to your mom because it reminds me of this and this. And I said, oh, that's nice, right? And one of the things and it really touched me. He was like, she reminds me of my mom. And I said, oh, how nice, right? And then he was just like, and here's the thing, his mom died in 2017. And here my mom is. And he was like, her voice sounds like her. The way she jokes sounds like her, everything. And after I heard that, I'm like, talk to her all you want, because it was like, and I could tell my mom was enjoying it because she's in her element, right? Because English, she understands a lot of it, but not as much as Vietnamese. And so I loved it. We went to the floating market, which just watching the people, and you think to yourself, oh my God, how do you make a life out of it? Right. And, Jonathan was saying, so I said, well, when the kids, where do they go to school? And he was like, well, they don't go to school. Right. And I said, well, where do they bait? He's like, well, they'll jump in the Delta. I'm like, he was like, if you and I were to jump in, we would come out all itchy. Right. But they're so accustomed to it. And then I was just like, you learn all this stuff. And I said, well, these boats, like the pineapple couple boat, I said, is there a bathroom in there? And he was like, no. He was like, do you see these ladies with their boats? They're like taxis. And so if you need to use the restroom, they build it, at a certain area, and they take them there. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, what a tough life, but they're choosing it. And you just have to think to yourself, God, props to you for, he said a lot, the pineapple club, they actually have a home on the mainland, right? But they choose to live on the boat because it's more simple. I don't know about you, Carrie, but I would not be, choosing to leave my home to live on a boat where I have to take a taxi to use the restroom. You know what I mean? A water taxi. And you just have to think to yourself, number one, how tough they are. And the love for living a simple life, they're willing to give up modern necessities or modern conveniences to live this life. So for people like us, touring can climb on their boat to have some pineapple. You just have to give them props for that, because they're choosing to live a life that's far more difficult than a life that you and I would ever choose.
You've got to also think that it's kind of in their DNA. They have come from that heritage, so they intrinsically know it so well. Like you and I, we'd be falling out of the boats, we'd be wanting to go to the toilet every 10 minutes, so we'd be getting we would be an absolute pain in the neck. I know I would be. So
I would.
I think also where it's challenging for the future, when I've talked to various guides, and I've been a couple of times now, is that it is a dying industry per se, because the children that they're having are getting better educated, as obviously they want them to be. So they don't want to come back and earn a living on those boats. They don't want to have those inconveniences of life. They want, they want the modern future. And so there's probably only about 100 or so families that now choose that and continue that. So, it's not going to be there for much longer, which is a little bit sad, but that's progress, I guess, in its most basic form. Right. But it's fascinating, isn't it, to see it and to realise that this is happening. This is not a show. This is not like put on just for tourists. This goes on whether I come and visit it or see it anyway. It's day-to-day existence and livelihood for a lot of people. So I'm glad you got to see that, because it's just even a good measurement back for yourself when you come back to your own country and you've got all the mod cons and you've got, your life, you go, oh my God.
Well, it certainly makes you appreciate what you have.
Absolutely.
Right, in your life, right? Because I don't have to call a water taxi to use the restroom, so.
Yes, exactly. All right, so then we moved you to Dalat, and I really want you to go all out on Dalat, because it's the one city amongst all my podcasts that I haven't really found the right person to talk about. I've been myself, but I really wanted someone that had a reason to go there and had some history about the place. And guess what? That's you. So tell us about Dalat.
Yeah, so Dalat is a city my mom grew up in with her family. And so, I mean, not only did her family start the bakery and their business in Saigon, but they actually started in Dalat, then moved to the larger city. And so they were successful in Dalat as well. And so I wanted to go back to see where my mom grew up, right? And, it's like maybe I could explain something, right? And I tell you what, it was nothing that I expected. It was, first off, amazingly beautiful. It was, I mean, I remember our driver and tour guide. I'm like, where are we going? Right? Because it was like, we're on the freeways and all of a sudden we exit and we're like in this forest. And I said, I thought we're going to Dalat. And they're like, yeah, we are. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And so I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to this, one horse town, one stoplight, we're going to have to dig our own place to use the restroom. And so we're just driving through and it's just beautiful. It was just, and then you see some farmers on the side and I was just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And then before you know it, you drive in, you take a curve and this city just rises up to meet you, And I was just like, hey, this is not what I expected. And we're driving through and it's this bustling city. It's not like Saigon, right? There's scooters, but it's a slower pace, but it's not slow, right? Don't think it's country. It's not. And then there's still the food, the markets, everything, but it's just a different feel. I was thinking about this the other day and it was maybe it's more of a calming city where, and I think I mentioned it, you could see the difference, right, in our tour guides. Like Tui is very high energy. And our Dalat tour guide, he's very high energy too, but there's also a calmness about him. Mm. You can actually relate that to Dalat because that's how it is. It's this bustling city, but there's this underlying calmness about it as well, And I have to say, it was beautiful. It was very lush. There's commerce, but not like you see in Saigon where it's just hustle, bustle. The streets are cleaner, I believe. And the people are friendlier, I think, right? They're less city because I live in city. I get it, right? They were just, it was an amazing experience. And then there's this fog that it's probably one of the most peaceful things I've ever seen. You have this hustle and bustle of the city, and then you see like this layer of fog, just kind of like, and it's such a contrast, I think, the city is because there's this calmness about it, but then there's also a lot of activity going on. I loved it, and the climate was different.
Cooler.
Saigon was hot.
Yeah,
Saigon is just hot. I mean, I remember I just continually sweat. And but Dalat, it's warm, right? They call it cold. Our tour guide's wearing a jacket. It was kind of funny, right? And here I am in shorts and a tank top but there's a different humanity about the city that's different from the larger, more hustle and bustle city.
I agree. Totally.
And it's beautiful. And there's a lot more colonial architecture, I believe. It's a better way to say it, right?
Colonial, and there's also a lot of French. There's more European influence.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's very pretty. It's a pretty city. Did you see the purple?
Very hilly. Yeah, it's very hilly, right? And I tell you what, and it's just a different feel. It's a city. Don't get me wrong. It's not country. There's nothing country about it, right? It was beautiful. And I think it's like Saigon, you have to really hustle and get to where you need to be. I think Dalat, you could really dilly-dally and linger and just, walk and enjoy the scenery. I think that is more expected and accepted in Dalat than you would have in Saigon.
I'll tell you what I know about it and see whether it matches up with you. It's very well known to be a romantic city. So a lot of Vietnamese go there, and if it's got the vibe that you're talking about, they go there for their honeymoons. So it's chosen for a lot of Vietnamese as their kind of honeymoon resort place to visit. And I think that's also because it's cooler, so that kind of helps. And it's very pretty, and they've got the beautiful lake, and they've got, that purple restaurant there. I don't know whether you remember that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. But the other things that I noticed about it was its fruit and the the size of the fruit. And they do a lot of things like jams and things like that, which is really unusual for Vietnam, but it's one of the very few places. There were strawberries the size of apples. They were just, I couldn't believe them. Like one strawberry would consume me like one apple. It was just, and you know how you love the pineapple in the Mekong Delta? Well, to me, those strawberries, if I could have taken them home with me, I would have. And then they have beautiful gardens and they have beautiful flowers and they have what they call their everlastings. And these are flowers that are said to never die. Now, I thought, like, someone's pulling my leg here, like seriously. But these flowers are real flowers. They're not imitations, but they are said to never die. Why or how? There's a mystery behind it. I never got to the bottom of it. Yeah. But you're right. In the hills, the beautiful scenery. And I got to visit some of the waterfalls, and my favourite waterfall was Pongour. That's Pongour. If I was sending people to Dalat, I would definitely be sending them into the hills. So talk a little bit about your stay.
Yeah, so we stayed, I forget the name. You're going to jump in and tell me what the accommodation was in Dalat.
And Anamandara.
It was
awesome.
It was a dream. I tell you what, if you think of number one, the service was impeccable. And they have their reception center is actually built out. There are no doors. You just walk in. There are seating with pillows. It is, I tell you what, it is when you think about where you go to relax. And I could really see this be a honeymoon place, like you mentioned, just because there's this romantic feel about it, right? Everything is just serene, it's calm, and the decor was impeccable. And the people were just unfathomably nice. I just could not believe it. I mean, talk about service, right? And so this is actually where French soldiers, I believe, during the war, they built it for them. And so there are these individual cottages throughout the resort.
Yeah.
And that's where your accommodations are, right? And so they actually have someone who drives a golf cart who takes you to where you're staying. Mm-hmm. And then, you walk up these stairs, where ours were upstairs. And then you walk in, you go up to your room and you walk in and it's like this paradise, dreamy. There's this king size bed. The furnishing was impeccable. There are these, what are they called? The little curtains above your bed.
The netting for the mosquitoes.
Yeah, the netting. Yeah. And it was all wood. I tell you what, whoever redid it and designed it, props to them, and it was just so comforting. It was so serene. And then they give you, like you mentioned, the fruit, a plate of fruit, local fruit there. The wax apples, which we don't have a lot in the U.S. And I opened up the balcony door, and then you just see the whole resort. And it was, I tell you what, if anyone's going to that is a good accommodation to really feel like you're in the middle of it, the culture, right? Because I sent you the videos. I woke up at 6 a.m, opened my balcony, walked out, and there was you see the beautiful trees and everything, but there's this fog that moves around, and the smell, the sound, everything. And it was because of my mom's knee surgery, we had to ask, them to bring the golf cart. I tell you what, I called front desk and I said, hey, listen, we're heading to the dining hall for breakfast. She's like, okay, we'll be there. They are there literally in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I mean, talk about service, right? In the U.S., we're like, if they get here in 10, we're good, right? But 3 minutes.
They get here at all.
So helpful. Yeah. And then after dinner, we had the staff at the restaurants. I mean, after breakfast, hey, will you call them? We need right back. 2 minutes. It was impeccable service. The accommodations were impeccable. The food was amazing.
Yeah. And the room size.
And they used, the room size.
It's massive, isn't it? Right. I've lived in places that size.
Yes. And here's the thing too. It's not a developing country luxury. It is modern, Western, what you would expect luxury. And so I think if any of your guests want somewhere where it's romantic, because here's the thing, I think no matter what time of day it is in Dalat, it's going to be romantic, right? Just because that's just that kind of city. You should stay there just because, and there's a lot of privacy too, and it's just, I just imagine walking through, the sidewalks that they have that's so paved and, in the morning with the fog. I mean, how much more romantic can that get, right? And the food, I mean, everything that we ate is very local. They had a mulberry jam that they actually, I think, picked not far from where.
That's what I was saying to you about the jams. Like, who would think of Vietnam and jam? Like,
yeah, and the mulberry jam, no less, right? And so, but it is just one of those accommodations. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. And everything was well-made. And I think one of the things I want to throw out there, I purchased plug converters, power converters, 2 of them just to take. Every accommodation that we went to had the U.S. accommodation, the 2 prongs. So I never had to use it, which was a huge surprise to me. And it kind of tells you how developed Vietnam is becoming.
That's really good to note. It's something I haven't thought to mention because I have to take converters from Australia because ours is different. Yeah, no, that's really good to mention. When I think of Dalat, I think of that lushness and the fog and the architecture and the lake and the purple. But the other thing to share with you about Dalat, which I don't know whether you went to, the markets are specialised in fabrics. So people often go just to Dalat to the markets because they are well known in all of Vietnam to specialise in fabric. So I have bought fabric there to have something made in Hoi An. And in Hoi An, they told me, if you want this and you want that kind of fabric, and you've got to go to Dalat for that. So it was one of the things that I did was to investigate. And in these markets, there was just like floors and floors of all this fabric. It was overwhelming, the different kind. I didn't even know that many variances existed of different types of fabric. And then they also have, because the traditional dress, the ao dai, which I've got a few of, because I love them. I think they're a beautiful garment, really elegant, really lovely. Well, they have some of the materials that are used for the ao dai, where you know how the top part might be plain, but then the bottom part will have some kind of image or decoration or just on the flow. Embroidery, yeah. So they have lots and lots and lots of that. So I was buying all this stuff, and I was with a Vietnamese girlfriend of mine. She said, how many ao dais are you going to have made? For God's sake, you're never going to wear that many of them. And I found it hard to kind of resist because it was so beautiful. And so I only bought 2 to have made. But, yes, it was charming. I went up into the hills and I stayed at a chalet, and it was called Zen Chalet. And get this, Vicki, you will laugh at this. The situation with this chalet was the guy that owned it was from Europe, came to Dalat, fell in love obviously with that architecture, and he just wanted to have this chalet overlooking this beautiful forest area, and the air was so sweet and so beautifully clean. And you didn't fill out a piece of paper because it was called Zen. So I said, but how do you know what I'm going to have? He said, the girls will remember. And I said, yeah, but I had a massage as well. Yeah, it'll be all fine. They never took anything. It was crazy.
That's amazing.
Because they wanted you to zen out. That was the whole idea of your stay there, to zen out, take in the environment, go for a walk, rest. We had a massage person come to our room and do the massage.
Nice.
And, the curtains opened out into this beautiful thing. And I'm going, I'm in heaven. I just want to die right now because it was so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we at the resort, we went and got massages as well. And here's the thing. I get massages here all the time. It's a different, feel. But we're getting a massage there and you hear the birds, you know? And it's just like, literally, am I in heaven? Right? Where it's like you're getting a massage, which is a luxury. And then you're in this, the smell, and then you just hear nature where, I love the city life, but what I hear is cars zooming by. And so it's just, I would say, and I also, our tour guide in Saigon says that when they go on vacation, her family goes on vacation, they actually go to Dalat. She said they sleep better there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, and it rained overnight when we stayed there. And I tell you what, there was just something so beautiful about it because you're in this environment, you smell the air, like you said, it's sweet, and then you just hear this rain. It's like what you feel that, and then people advertise as relaxing, that this is what you want to do to, de-stress, to, unplug all of that stuff. And I have to say, the food in Dalat was a little bit different. It's a little bit sweeter. I don't know if you noticed that. So they season their food a little bit sweeter than you would get in Saigon.
Yes. So talk to me now about how your mum related to being back in Dalat. What did she notice were the most significant changes? How did she react to the Dalat of 2023?
It's so funny. She was in awe because everywhere she lived, they took us around the city because the goal was to find where she grew up, the house where she grew up. And Dalat and Vietnam is so developed now. We literally, and I say props to the driver, God bless him. He just drove us around and around, hoping my mom recognizes where she lives. But she doesn't because everything is so new now, right? I mean, you have to admit, she was 31 then, she's 75 now, right? And so a lot's going to change then. And we couldn't find it. But I tell you what, she was in awe. And she was just like, oh, is that where it was? Like the open market where she went when she was little. She loved it. And all I was thinking is like, where is your house? Because we've been around this circle like 5 times, right? She loved it. It brought back so many memories. And then just driving the street. And she was in awe too, right? Because when she was growing up, it was a completely different city. And now there's just so much going on. And she's my mom, and I've seen her happy. But this was a different kind of happy and almost a peaceful happy, just because it's back to where she grew up. And just seeing, I don't know, I can't explain it, but the city has grown, and I just love watching. There were people selling raw meat, on the side of the road. And I even said to our tour guide, I said, when you eat that, do you get sick? Right? Because in the US and Western culture, there are a lot of, food, there's a lot of different thresholds that you have to for your meat and stuff. And he was like, well, when I eat it, I'm fine. I'm not sure if you eat it, you're going to be fine. Right? Just because the US has different standards. And it was just seeing that. And here's the thing, what I wouldn't have done if we had the time to just walk around, to walk past the stall that's selling raw meat, right? Out in the open, right? Not in a refrigerated case. To look at the fruits, and it was, so I tell you what, my mom was so happy. I just remember on our last day, we were sitting and eating, and she looked right at me. She's like, I want to come back. I'm like, well, hell, me too, right?
I kind of felt for your mum in the sense that it's kind of life affirming to go back to your roots, to, see where you came from. It kind of, I think everyone in their life kind of has to do a full circle at some point to relate to why you are, how you are, where you come from. And, her saying to you during the time, well, if you knew where I came from, you would better understand something. So that's kind of the older, wiser woman kind of giving you that advice, I think. I think it was lovely. And the thing I loved about you, that you wanted to do that with her. You wanted that bond and that closeness because, as you say, in the ordinariness of every day, come see, come sa, you don't do it. But when you're doing something purposeful like that, and that's going back to something that she relates to, and she's got that comfort with her own language. She's with her own people. Like, you can totally get it, can't you? Like,
right. Well, it's kind of funny. I came back and I said, if we were in Vietnam, mom would be the cool mom.
Yeah.
She would be the mom where all the kids would come to the, and it was just like, just because it was just the way our tour guides gravitated towards her, like Twee gravitated towards her, Jonathan and Hai from Dalat and our driver. And I was just like, it was the side that I've never seen, right, in the US. And so it was just like, she was in her element. There were some things that I wanted to buy, like some jam, right? Some Dalat coffee, right? Some tea, right? Because Dalat's known for tea. So we did a lot of shopping, but we didn't do a lot of sightseeing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, because I had you down, you were going to go into the Zen monastery and you were going to do the summer palace. Did you do any of that, or did the shopping take over?
Is that the one where
the last king?
Yes, we did go there. Yes.
Is that impressive?
Right. We did. It was impressive. And this is a history. And here's the thing. It was impressive because all of this is surrounded just one man, right? And it was like, are you kidding me? Right. And I think the story was a little bit sad. I really felt sad for his wife.
Right. I can't remember the story. There's so many stories.
There's so many stories, but he apparently very handsome. When my mom looked at the picture, she remembered him. She's like, isn't he handsome? I'm like, right? Not my type. But it was Q who was so handsome. And, he was a king or so powerful that he attracted a lot of women. And he had an affair, and his wife, of course, was brokenhearted. And there was just this room that she just stayed in because she was so brokenhearted. And I just thought to myself, holy cow, this day and age, we're getting divorced, right? It's over. But she just stuck with him because she just loved him so much. But then she had a room where she grieved in. And it's like, God bless her. Do you know what I mean? And she had all these children that she had to keep up with and put on this show. But yet she was brokenhearted through this whole thing.
As we're kind of getting close to literally when you're about to fly back to Saigon to meet up with your flight back home, we took you to Dalat, and that was kind of, let's put it out there, Vicki. That was kind of where things fell off the rails a little bit. We had you down to stay in a bungalow resort. I wouldn't call it a resort particularly, but it was supposed to be okay. But as it turned out, it wasn't okay, was it? So that kind of put a downer on things. And that was the bit I was kind of most disappointed about. But maybe tell a little bit about that story, because there's been so much good things. I don't want this one to be the last thing that people remember, if you know what I mean, because that was...
Yeah, absolutely. And for the record, this was the only,
glitch. Let's say glitch.
It was only glitch. And when I look back, this is not what I think of, when I look back at our trip. And so, we went to a little city in the suburb of Dalat named Dalat because my mom actually was born there. And so we wanted to see what it's all about, right? And it's an opportunity for her to go see where she grew up in her city. And the main city part, where all the commerce is, she remembers that very well. Where we stayed at, it's called the Danbury, and
it's remote.
It's an hour drive, and it's through the forest, right? It's a beautiful drive, don't get me wrong, but it was very, very remote. And in its better days, it was actually kind of an amusement park, and there's a pond in it, and so forth. So we get in. So we have two accommodations. My mom and I have separate rooms as normal. It was very basic. And when I say basic, I mean basic. It was a bed, an old blanket. And so we walked in, and my mom's room, thank God, was in better condition than mine. I walked in, there was just this old blanket on this flat bed, and there's stains on it. They were kind of sticky stains, which of course, you avoid. And, after coming from the accommodations in Saigon and, our luxury cabin on the cruise in Mekong Delta and Dalat, this was really an eyesore, and it's drastically different. I don't think it was well kept. Maybe during COVID, as we spoke about, everything shut down and things got overlooked or fell through the cracks. But, the bathroom, it was nothing I've ever seen before. And I hope I won't ever see again. I text one of our contacts at the travel agency and said, we want to get out here as soon as possible, right? Because our tour guide and driver were expected to pick us up around 10 the next morning.
They were there at 5:30.
I said, sooner get out of here, the better. Yeah. So I packed up my stuff at 5 in the morning, moved to my mom's bungalow, and then our tour guides came around 7, which is perfect, right? And then we just got the hell out of Dodge. But would I recommend a Danbury? Probably not, right?
No, I won't be recommending it either. But it speaks to the contrast in Vietnam from the areas that are developed and obviously have more stringent controls around, how they appear to tourists. But in some of these remote areas, it can be a bit of a lucky dip. And unfortunately, I guess to everyone listening, it's fair to say that some things are just out of your control. And, thankfully, Vicki was able to handle it as best as you could, and I'm grateful for that. I just wish it didn't happen.
Right.
I think it's something for people to double check when they're talking to their travel agents or they're questioning with me if they're talking about a particular area. I learnt from it to be double checking these remote areas more so. I mean, you loved the hotel, the New World you stayed at in Saigon. So I probably did the wrong thing. I set it up badly. See, I gave you all those beautiful places and then you got there and you got to the flushing toilet place and you went, what happened here? She steered me in the wrong direction. So let's not do that detour again. We will, if we take you back to Dalat ever again, we'll keep you in Dalat and probably at Anamandara. So you'll have to do that hour drive. But that's funny, talking about places out of Dalat. They are quite long drives to get the full benefit of being in that region. And it is hard to find places. That's why me stumbling on that Zen Cafe chalet place was like, holy, this is like a little oasis in the middle of it all. And because there's just not that many of them that can sustain themselves that far out. So that's why everybody's in the city. And Dalat has grown exponentially in the last few years. It really wasn't even on the tourist maps for most people. They wouldn't go to Dalat, didn't even know about Dalat 4 years ago.
We wouldn't have ever done if my mom didn't grow up there.
Yeah.
Right. Because I would probably pick the bigger cities. Right. But it was our first trip. And I remember all I told you is this is where we definitely want to go because my mom grew up there. And, you put the rest of the trip together, which was phenomenal. Right. Because I would never have said, let's do the Mekong Delta. Right. Because I've never been there. I don't know. But the whole trip was phenomenal.
If you had some tips for my listeners, like for their first time trip to Vietnam, what would they be? And we can finish up on those.
Sure. I would say do not overpack because I tend to always overpack. Just because like when we stayed at New World Hotel in Saigon, that is the hotel we'll stay at every single time because the service, the food, everything, it was beautiful. It was clean. It was central. They have cheap laundry. Like, Carrie, you and I discussed before our trip. I said, is there laundry service? And you even said, don't overpack, right? Because it's really easy. It's really cheap. And of course I overpacked. And, the laundry service was incredible. And it was very inexpensive. And even if you rush it, it's still inexpensive. And they bring it to your room all folded and nice. It was amazing. Secondly, try everything. You want the experience, right? If you're coming from the U.S., don't go to KFC, even though I'm sure KFC is a little bit different, in Vietnam. Try the local foods. Go with what your tour guide recommends. As, what we did is we asked our tour guide, Thuy. I said, I really wanted this, congee, right? This rice soup. And I said, where should we go? She took us to the one that she and her family always goes to. And it was delicious. It was amazing. And so, trust your tour guides, right? And, and one of the things that everyone talks about is, oh, it's a developing country. I hope I don't get sick, right? I eat something wrong. I hope I don't get sick. I tell you what, I didn't get sick once while we were there. And I basically ate everything I could get my hands on just because I wanted to try everything. And so, my thing is, don't be afraid to try new foods. Don't be afraid to go to different places, because I remember when we went to where the Mekong, the war, I'm just like, I'm not a history buff. I don't even know why we're going. But it was an amazing experience because that's part of the heritage. It's like, this is what they did to defend the country, right? They lived underground for years in these cramped little places, right? And with this heat and everything. And so it's be open-minded, try everything, trust your tour guides, right? Because I don't care what you say. We talk about people who it's just a job. With every single one of our tour guides and drivers, it was not that for them. They wanted to make sure that you were taken care of, you enjoy your time, and you were safe, right? And thirdly, go to Vietnam. You will not regret it. And since I've been back, everyone that I've spoken to, I have said, if you get a chance, go to Vietnam. And I know exactly who you could, help book your trips. And then also the beauty of it. Yeah, exactly. And also the beauty of it too, even if you don't know the language, your tour guide speaks English. So you're not, I would say, go to Vietnam, try everything. And next time I go, I think, because I've seen so many beautiful dresses in the window, I'm going to go in and try on some dresses and buy dresses. But
did you feel safe? Did you feel safe?
Oh, I absolutely felt safe. Not for an instant did it, regardless of where we're at.
Yes.
Mekong Delta, Dalat, Dalat, right? Or Saigon. I never felt unsafe. Never. And it's just, and like I said, the tour guides are there to take you around and to love their city, not to take you to a place where you feel unsafe and you get robbed, right? And so I say trust it. I trust the process. This is what I'll tell you. If you took a trip to Vietnam, you will never regret it. And I'm 100% sure that you'd want to go back because there's so much more to see.
Vicki, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being my client. Thank you for being understanding about our glitch. I'm just glad you had a good time. I'm glad your mum enjoyed it as well. And I just feel very lucky to have met you. If I didn't do this podcast, and I wouldn't have got to meet you. So just want to say thank you and for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being so understanding with everything.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?